For little requests only?
No, not yet.
Oh.
It's Cebelius.
Oh! It's
Silvio!
Cebelius! Oh, it's Cebelius! Oh my goodness! There we go.
Perfect intro.
Howdy.
Look at that. Look at this. Look at this. Can we get a close up here?
Emerging
on
from the
Cebelius?
cloud of smoke.
Look, this aesthetic perfection here. The smoke clouds, the cowboy hat, the
cigar on the icon was just a joke or a gimmick. It's not. I smoke.
Yeah, I was half expecting a Minotaur to show up.
Just a sentient Minotaur.
Back when I started in 2018, I was still employed, and I was employed at a company that would have fired me if they found out what I wrote. So couldn't have my face associated with it at all, because they were the sort to troll Facebook for that sort of thing. So yeah, I had to.
I knew a guy who got in trouble for doing that.
He
used the company's computers, and they printed out an entire pornographic scene he had written and just said, "What's this?"
In retrospect, I wish that was how I got fired. I had to quit, actually. So that was But now I'm employed by my audience, so I really hope they continue to like what I put out.
Well, it sounds like they do, Seb.
So far.
Yeah. So, Cebelius, so can you give us a little bit of an overview from the beginning of your writing career? What you've written, what you started with, and what you're working with us with now. Send Me an Angel, right?
Sure. Basically, I have been writing as long as I could read. And when kids said, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a policeman or a firefighter, I said, I want to be the next Terry Brooks, which was, apologies to Mr. Brooks, but your books don't hold up that well. So I always wanted to be a writer. And when I was a little kid, I'd wander around, and I would always have a little notebook with me that I would be writing in. And then I figured out that most writers never get published. So I kind of gave that up, and I quit writing, and I became a network engineer. I joined the Air Force as a computer guy, and I did my whole Air Force career. And as soon as I got out of that, I became an engineer for the cellular companies, and I put up cell sites all over the country. And then I got back into network defense and went overseas, and I spent time in Kyrgyzstan and Kuwait, Afghanistan, doing computer crap. And then I found my future ex-wife, and I came back. And it was a few years after I'd gotten back to the States when a couple of buddies of mine said, hey, you used to write when you were a kid. This self-publishing thing is now a thing. People are making money off of it. So several friends got together and said, we're going to start a writing group with the objective of going self-publishing and see if we can make it. Do you want in? And I said, sure, why not? I got time in the evenings. And I'll abridge that to say that I was working on a project that I'm working on with you guys, and I'll come back to it. But the initial writing was happening when my father was in decline. He was going through a rough patch, and he wounded. I'm an author. I write, seriously.
I do it all the time.
There's no editor.
Get paid to read and say things.
Thank you, Tab. Is very good. I liked it. I had fun. But the book kind of got really dark, and that's not what lit RPG people like. They want more light and fluffy most of the time. There are exceptions, of course. So I put that aside, and I said, I need to write something that will allow me to recapture the fun, which is, I enjoy writing. I love it, but I wanted to write something fun. So I said, well, what do I like? And at the time, I just got done watching Monster Musume, and I was reading some things that were harem, and I said, I can do that. It will be fun. So I put together this idea. The one thing that I had noticed in Harem, and forgive me for all the other authors who may or may not ever see this, but most of the protagonists in Harem at that time were complete sociopaths. They were awful people. It's just awful people. So those were my three premises. That I wanted monster girls, I wanted harem, and I wanted a protagonist that actually felt like a real human being to me. And I like isekai, and I always have. So that was it. The portal fantasy, monster girl, harem with a decent guy as a protag. And I wrote Mask of the Template in a month. I had a comic book artist that I knew at the time put together a cover for me, which I've since replaced. And it went out, and I forgot about it. I said, okay, bucket list checked, and I went back to the Lit RPG project, and I was working on that. And about 3 days later, some dude said, hey, they're talking about you on Facebook. You need to sign on to Facebook and start. And well, 9 days after release, it hit bestseller in its category.
Nice.
And it went all the way to like 125 overall paid in store. And I said, well, I left a few. So I wrote the arc for the next 5 books, and I put the second one out, and it also did. I said, well, I guess I'm not doing lit RPG, I'm doing harem, because that's clearly what they want to pay me to do. And so that was the Celestine Chronicles. And to this date, unfortunately, well, I mean, that's not it. One of the other authors in my group, his name was Scott Morgan. He put out some books in harem afterward, and they did okay. And but other than that, my writing group is still, they're still working on their projects. So I'm 8 books in now and just kind of cruising along. And that brings us back to Send Me an Angel. I was at Dragon Con last year. They didn't have it this year, apparently. But last year I was at Dragon Con, and I met Jeff and the sound booth people, and we sat down and we had lunch. And Jeff says to me, you're doing really well. We want to do a book for you, but do you have one that isn't explicit? And I said, no. I have a project that I kind of shelved that I was working on before all of this kicked off that isn't explicit. He said, we'll do that. And I said, okay. So I went back to the project, which is called the Divine Cohen series, and the first book is Send Me an Angel. And I said, oh my God, I wrote this. And so I redid a lot of the premise and fixed it up as much as I could. And I sent it off. And well, what really sold me though on Sound Booth was I got a what do you call it? An audition. And I said, this audition is freaking phenomenal. And it was Gary Furlong that they chose to be the voice. And thank you, Gary. When I heard the audition, I said, okay, now I'm stoked. I really,
That's awesome.
really,
Thank you
really
very
want
much.
to give this to Sound Booth based purely on this audition, which was awesome. And so here we are. I finished the book. I sent it off to Sound Booth. They've done it. I'm holding off on the release until it can go live on Sound Booth's website. And provided I don't get absolutely lambasted by the Lit RPG folks, it's Game Lit, by the way. I feel I should mention that. It's not Lit RPG. It's not Crunchy Lit RPG. It's Game Lit. And we can go into the differences in the genre. I'm a book geek, so I know the differences in the genre. It's not Lit RPG. It's Game Lit. But here we are. So that brings us right back to Sound Booth and Send Me an Angel. And thank you for wanting to and being willing to do my book.
Not at all. I mean, you say you enjoyed the audition, but honestly, like, when the material is good, that makes a huge difference. Like, a massive difference. So, like, it was, when I got the audition, I was like, oh, I would like this, please. And so did,
Well, I appreciate
did some auditions.
I try and write well, and that's a lot of my fans tell me that I write well. I mean, among other things. Obviously, I hate the genre, but they say, well, what makes Seb books stand out? is that the quality of the writing and the characterization is a bit better than it is for a lot of the book a month club, we'll call them.
Sure.
Hey, well, we actually have a clip. Can you believe it?
Oh,
We
yeah.
have a clip of Send Me an Angel, never before heard by the greater community. What do you say we, okay, I'll just play it.
Yeah, do it.
Drums! Sirhan cried, his voice booming. A slow, steady beat thrummed through the room, one deep reverberation every 2 seconds. Sirhan took up his weapon from another servitor, a gem-encrusted platinum-plated sledge with a metal haft 6 feet long. The face of the hammer was cleated, and the back of the head ended in a vicious spike. Caden's blackguard was a huge man, 4 inches over 6 feet and 240 pounds of solid muscle. As he stepped around the table and came to stand in front of the offending Sir Brafen, the Chevalier boldly spoke. Sirhan, surely I cannot face you in armor while you stand naked to my blade. For a moment, silence reigned in the hall but for the crackling of the fire in the hearth behind the king and the slowly beating drum. Then Sirhan let out a bellowing laugh, and all the rest of the nobles in the hall, terrified of retribution, laughed along with him. The drum beat on. When the laughter faded, King Caden said,
Surely you hear that drum, Brafen? Those beats mark the scant time left in your life. I give you no more than 10 beats once battle is joined. Make peace with the powers, draw your sword, and face death on your feet.
So good! It's so good! I'm as much a fan of the audio. When I write a book and I think it's good, I publish it and people like it, and great. And then I get the audio. Well, hey, it's great. They pay me. That's awesome. And then
You're welcome.
the audiobook comes out, and I squeak just as loudly as anybody that's waiting for it, because when it's performed, that's somebody else doing an amazing job. The fact that it's my book is just icing on the cake. It's awesome to hear those performances, and that I've never heard that clip before, and I'm stoked. I can't wait.
Dude,
So-
Gary, thank you so much, by the way, for casting me as the villain. I think I think it's always a pleasure to play the villains, and Cebelius did a
Tell
great
story
job.
At the end of the book, that's as a villain, that's freaking amazing. It's awesome.
Speaking of villains, I mean, you have 2 of the worst people in the world as your villains. Jeff playing one of them as King Caden. Where do you get the inspiration to write those kind of dudes and dudettes?
Well, some of the villains, really, I'm not really that great a person personally. And so all I do when I'm thinking of creating a villain is I take some dark impulse, and as human beings, human nature is not inherently good. We have to be taught to be good people. If nobody teaches a kid how to act and what to do, most of them wind up unholy terrors. Just look at any 3-year-old that's allowed to wander around, and the kids these days are actually on leashes. That's how bad they are. But they grow up to be terrible human beings. So all I do is I take a dark impulse and I increase it to the nth degree.
To 11.
And you can have an otherwise decent human being with just one dark impulse that will then make them a compelling villain. And so that's what I do. Annie Wise, who is one of the 2 villains,
Ooh.
is
Played by Annie Ellicott.
Nope,
Ah,
this way.
yes.
Nope,
Oh,
this
hi
way.
guys. Sorry,
I
I was
just have to point down.
But yeah,
sorry to
Annie.
be caught scratching my head.
Yeah, Annie Wise is she has a dark impulse that I will leave you to read the book to find out. And then King Caden is the other villain, and King Caden is kind completely sociopathic, but he has another motivation, a deeper motivation that ties into the actual arc of the book. So I won't give that away yet. But yeah, so that's basically how I come up with my villains.
I just remember reading as I was narrating, going through, thinking like, these are two of the most terrifying people I've ever come across, and I'm glad I don't know them.
Me too. Me too. Trust me, I wouldn't like either of those people in person. But it's a nature of gamelit as well, or when you're in a game. And I have another series that deals more deeply with this particular topic. Is that when you're in a game, you're allowed to entertain the darker impulses. You're encouraged almost in some of them to entertain these darker impulses. And in society, it serves the purpose of catharsis. You get to sort of scratch that itch without actually killing people and burning down houses and taking money from the hooker and then running her over in the car. And if you've played GTA, you did that. Don't pretend you didn't.
Indeed, I have.
You got out and you ran her over before getting the money and driving off again. I know you did it. So
I have many a hooker have experienced my wrath.
GTA.
In GTA.
Grand Theft Auto. Honestly, that game, I mean, wow, so many things to atone for.
It's a good way to learn the layout of a city.
That's true. Yeah.
And if you run a lot of people down in a row, you get points.
Yeah,
That's
Right.
real life, yeah?
like I said, they're encouraging,
like real life.
Yeah, they encourage the darker aspects of human nature so that when you sign off the game, you can go out into the world and not feel like, killing puppies and burning houses down and
Right.
Yeah, and you've got a smile on your
Very
face the whole
true.
time, and people are like, "Why are you smiling?" And you're like, no reason." Well,
Indeed.
Cebelius, Send Me an Angel is going to be rolled out with the platform, which is going to be released. We are on track for the end of October. It's going to be on the starting lineup.
Yep.
So
Exclusive. It's not going to be on Audible. It's only going to be on the Soundbooth site. And I'm waiting to release the book until the site goes live. So
Awesome.
Awesome.
So you'll
wait.
be able to get your ears on it then. Thank you very much, Cebelius, and wish you all the best.
absolutely, no problem. Thanks
So-
for having me.